The missing hours. I've been driving trucks for almost 15 years. Most of those miles are just empty stretches of road and diesel noise. You stop noticing the landscape after a while. Everything blurs into the same horizon. But that last week before I quit over the road and went local, that week changed how I see time itself. It started like any other run. I'd been working for a major carrier out of Missouri, one of those companies where they track every minute of your drive time, every mile, every stop. Our trucks were governed at 62 miles per hour, which meant no rushing, no passing, just slow, steady movement. The company also had one strict rule: no passengers, no friends, no family, no exceptions. Insurance policy. But there was this girl, a friend of mine named Ashley. She'd been talking about getting her CDL, said she wanted to see the country. I told her that trucking wasn't like the movies. It's not freedom, it's fatigue, loneliness, and truck stop coffee that tastes like it's been filtered through motor oil. She didn't believe me. So, like an idiot, I told her I'd take her along for a few days, just to show her what it's really like. 5 days on the road and she'd never want to see another semi again. I knew it was against company rules, but it was my last week. What could they really do? Fire me twice? We left early on a Sunday morning. It was mid-August, hot enough that the blacktop shimmered like liquid. Ashley climbed up into the cab with a grin, wearing a ball cap and aviators like she was ready to conquer America. I told her to keep her head down if we rolled into any company yards. By late afternoon, we'd cleared St. Louis and crossed into Illinois. I'd done this route more times than I could count. Every curve, every rest area, every diner with halfway decent coffee. My plan was to pull into the rest area just east of Effingham, shut down for the night, and finish the run in the morning. But somewhere after Mount Vernon, things got weird. I remember glancing at my Qualcomm, the digital logbook every trucker loves to hate. It tracks your hours automatically, 11 hours max driving time per day. You go 1 minute over and safety will blow up your phone. The display said I still had 1 hour and 35 minutes of drive time left. That couldn't be right. I'd started my clock at 6:45 a.m. It was now almost 6 p.m. Even with a short break, I should have been close to out of hours. I blinked, checked the screen again. Same thing, 1 hour, 35 minutes left. Ashley was scrolling on her phone, humming along to the radio. I said, "That can't be right. The clock's off." She looked over. "What's wrong?" "I should be done. I've been driving almost 11 hours. She laughed. "Maybe you're faster than you think. The truck's governed at 62 miles per hour. There's no way." I brushed it off, figuring maybe the Qualcomm glitched or the GPS lost signal. It happens sometimes out in the middle of nowhere. I told myself I'd drive just a bit farther, maybe another 30 miles, and then stop for the night. But an hour later, I looked again. Still 1 hour of drive time left. Ashley noticed my expression change. "What's wrong now?" "I'm losing time, or gaining it. I don't even know." She frowned, trying to make sense of it. "Maybe your start time's off. You did take a break." "Yeah, but not enough to gain 2 hours." I rubbed my eyes. I was exhausted, one of those bone-deep fatigues where you feel the road vibrating in your teeth. Every highway light started looking the same. The hum of the tires had this hypnotic rhythm to it. Ashley leaned forward, peering through the windshield. "You sure we're even going the right way?" That's when I realized something else. The sky looked off. It wasn't dark yet, but the sun seemed lower than it should have been, like it was sinking too fast, leaving everything tinted in this strange metallic orange glow. The shadows of the trees along the interstate were long and sharp, like claws stretching across the asphalt. My dashboard clock said 6:57. Ashley's phone said 8:23. "I think we should stop," she said. "Yeah, I think you're right." We pulled into the next truck stop, one of those little outposts tucked behind a Shell station. There were a few trucks already lined up, their engines rumbling softly in the dusk. I parked,
killed the engine, and sat there for a minute in silence. Ashley was doing the math out loud, departure time, brake time, drive time, but none of it added up. Somehow, I'd driven 13 hours, but my log only showed 11. I called dispatch. No answer. It was late. I thought about calling safety, but I didn't want to risk them finding out about Ashley being with me, so I decided to just log off for the night. Maybe by morning it would make sense. I didn't sleep well. I kept waking up to the sound of diesel engines coming and going, brakes hissing, the smell of hot asphalt and coffee drifting through the cab. At some point in the night, I heard something else, a scraping noise along the trailer. I sat up, peered through the windshield. Nothing. Just the glow of sodium lights and dust drifting across the lot. Ashley was asleep in the passenger seat, arms tucked under her jacket. Her face looked pale under the dashboard glow. For a split second, I thought I saw something move near the fuel pumps, a tall shadow, longer than any human silhouette should be. But when I blinked, it was gone. I told myself it was just exhaustion. The next morning, we rolled out before sunrise. I didn't mention the noise, and she didn't. But the week just got worse. 2 days later, somewhere in Pennsylvania, a sedan spun out right in front of us. It was raining hard, visibility near zero. The car hydroplaned across both lanes and slammed into the guardrail. I locked the brakes, trailer fishtailing, heart pounding. By some miracle, the car bounced off the rail and spun behind me instead of under me. Ashley screamed, gripping the dashboard. I remember pulling over, calling 911, and sitting there shaking for 20 minutes. The trooper said it was lucky no one was killed. Yeah, lucky. But deep down, something felt wrong. Like that extra time I'd been given wasn't a glitch, it was borrowed, and something was keeping score. By Wednesday, it happened again. Another car, this one a silver SUV, lost control on a dry stretch of highway. No reason, no slick roads, just veered off and flipped 3 times. Each time, I kept thinking, that could have been us. Ashley started getting quiet. She wasn't smiling anymore. She spent most of the drive staring out the window, flinching every time headlights passed. That night, climbing a long grade through the Appalachians, I came up behind another semi struggling up the hill. His hazard lights were flashing. I slowed down, preparing to pass, when his truck suddenly stopped, dead. I barely had time to swerve around him. If I'd been a second slower, I would have buried my front bumper into his trailer. Ashley shouted, gripping the dashboard. "Jesus, what is happening?" I couldn't answer, because by that point I was starting to believe something was following us. It sounds insane, I know, but every night that week, after shutting down, I saw the same thing. When I'd step out of the cab to stretch my legs, I'd notice another truck parked a few spots away, engine idling, lights off. Every time, it was the same long black Peterbilt, chrome grille, no markings, no DOT numbers, nothing. And every time it was facing directly towards me. I told Ashley once, but she didn't want to hear it. "Stop," she said. "You're just tired." Maybe I was, but on Thursday night, that black truck followed me out of the lot. We were heading east, climbing through a mountain pass. The sky was overcast, thunder rumbling somewhere in the distance. I kept checking my mirrors. The truck was always there, same distance, same lights. Then, halfway up the grade, the other semi ahead of me stalled. I had to downshift hard to avoid hitting him. I glanced in the mirror. No black truck. "Gone," I muttered. Ashley looked up. "What?" I didn't answer. I just kept driving until we reached the top of the pass. When I finally looked again, my Qualcomm screen blinked once and froze. Then the clock jumped backwards. 2 hours. Ashley gasped. "What the hell?" The engine sputtered, then smoothed out again. For the rest of the climb, we drove in silence. I dropped the load the next day and turned the truck in. I didn't even finish my last week. I told dispatch I was done and that I'd take the local position back home. They didn't argue. I didn't tell them about the missing hours. I didn't tell anyone. Ashley decided not to become a driver after all. She said she'd had enough of the road and went into medical instead. I sometimes think about that week, though, about how the clock bent, how the time didn't add up, and how something, whatever it was, seemed to be steering fate just far enough to keep us alive. And sometimes, when I'm out on a night run, I still see headlights in my mirrors. No markings, no driver, just a long black Peterbilt following from a distance. And when I glance at my dash clock, the minutes never quite match.
The flying truck. They say the Baja Desert doesn't forgive mistakes. It's too wide, too old, too full of ghosts and bad memories baked into the sand. I used to think that was just something locals said to make the race crews nervous. I don't think that anymore. I've been working for an off-road racing team for years, testing rigs, repairing suspensions, hauling parts across impossible terrain. It's not glamorous, but if you've ever driven through the Baja at night, you'll understand why we keep coming back. The desert there isn't just dirt and rock. It's alive. It breathes. It hums with something older than time, something that humbles even the toughest engines. That night, my buddy and I were on a 4-hour dirt road headed south along the Sea of Cortez, bound for Gonzaga Bay. The area is damn near nowhere, just sand, cliffs, and a few stubborn cacti scattered across the horizon. No cell signal, no power lines, no lights but the ones you bring. We'd finished a long day tuning up a chase truck and were hauling gear back to the next base camp. It was around midnight. The desert air was cool and salty from the sea, and the stars looked like spilled diamonds on black velvet. We'd been driving for maybe an hour when I saw something behind us, a faint glow far down the road. "Another team, maybe?" my buddy said. I glanced in the mirror. The glow grew brighter, fast, way too fast. Before I could answer, twin beams of light sliced through the darkness. Then another set appeared on top, bar-mounted roof lights, high-power LEDs, the kind that blind you even through tinted glass. Whoever was behind us was flying, eating up the distance between us like the devil himself was driving. I tapped the brakes, not to stop, just to flash the rear lights, a warning to back off. The guy didn't. He only got closer. The Baja dirt roads are narrow, and one wrong move means a 30-foot drop into black nothing. I started waving my hand out the window, hoping he'd dim those lights, but the bastard kept them full blaze. It was like having a second sun behind us. Everything in front of me went ghost white, washed out by the glare. "Jesus Christ," my buddy muttered, shielding his eyes. "He's gonna kill us both." Now, you have to understand something about that stretch of road. After the spring break crowd left San Felipe or Ensenada, some of them like to take their trucks out there to test their rigs, locals and gringos both. No cops, no limits, no rules, just drunken bravado and engines screaming into the night. It was wild, but dangerous as hell. I figured that's what this guy was. Some idiot still buzzing from tequila, tearing down the road with more horsepower than sense. The problem was, he wasn't just tailing us, he was chasing us. Every curve I took, every bump, his light stayed perfectly locked behind mine. The speedometer climbed, the steering wheel vibrated under my hands as we hit loose sand. I was pushing our rig harder than I ever should have on that terrain. Then we came up on a stretch I knew well, a long curve near the shoreline where the dirt dipped close to the sea before cutting back inland. There's a small shoulder there, barely enough to pull off if you're lucky. I decided that was my only option before this maniac rammed us into the cliffs. "Hang on," I yelled, jerking the wheel. We hit the shoulder hard, bouncing over rocks and sand, but managed to stop without rolling. Dust exploded around us like a cloud. My hands were shaking as I killed the headlights and turned to look behind us.
The lights from the other truck tore through the dust a few seconds later, screaming down the road. Way too fast for that curve. "There's no way he's making that turn," my buddy said. We both watched as the twin beams hit the bend. But instead of braking, the truck kept going. Straight. Right off the curve. Right to the sea. I remember leaning forward, expecting to see the lights tumble down the embankment into the water, the sound of crashing metal, the distant splash. That's what should have happened. But that's not what we saw. The lights didn't fall. They kept moving across the beach, across the dark line of the tide, and then slowly, impossibly, they lifted. They rose into the air, the beams pitching upward, tilting toward the night sky like a plane taking off. And then they vanished. No sound, no splash, no crash, just silence, and a faint echo of wind off the sea. We sat there, both of us breathing like we'd just sprinted a mile. The world went quiet again, the kind of quiet that presses on your eardrums. Even the insects seemed to hold their breath. After a long minute, my buddy turned to me. His face was pale under the dashlight. "Did you see it?" he asked. I swallowed hard. "The flying truck?" He nodded slowly. Neither of us spoke for a while, because what was there to say? We drove the rest of the way in silence, headlights off for part of it. The night felt heavier after that, like it was watching us. We reached Gonzaga Bay near dawn, the sky turning that dusty orange pink that only the desert can make. When we met up with the others at camp, they noticed we were jumpy. One of the guys joked that we looked like we had seen a ghost. We just laughed it off. What were we supposed to tell them? That we'd seen a truck drive into the ocean and take off like a plane? Nobody would believe that. We went on working that morning like nothing happened, but both of us avoided talking about it, not even a whisper. It didn't make sense to talk about something that couldn't have happened. But that image, the lights lifting into the sky, stayed burned into my head. Weeks later, back in the States, I couldn't shake the memory. I kept thinking about how fast that thing came up behind us, how perfectly its lights tracked mine. It wasn't normal driving, it was too precise. So I did some digging. There have been a lot of strange stories out of Baja over the years. Locals talk about las luces del desierto, the desert lights. Bright orbs that chase vehicles, mimic headlights, sometimes even follow racers during the Baja 1000. Most say it's spirits, maybe lost souls of drivers who never made it out. Others blame military experiments or UFOs over the Gulf. But one story hit me harder than the rest. Back in the early 90s, a local mechanic and his son supposedly crashed a custom-built off-road truck near that same stretch of road we were on. They were testing at night when they missed a curve and went into the sea. No bodies were ever found, just twisted metal and a tire that washed up days later. People said the truck disappeared beneath the water before rescuers could reach it. Since then, fishermen claimed to see headlights moving under the waves at night, gliding just below the surface, then rising into the air before fading. I didn't believe in ghosts before that trip, but after that night, I don't rule anything out. A year after the incident, we were back in Baja for another race. This time, I was driving a support van near the same area. It was dusk, the kind of golden light that melts into shadow fast. My buddy, same one from that night, was sitting in the passenger seat. Neither of us said it out loud, but we both knew where we were. The curve near the sea came up ahead. I slowed without meaning to, and that's when I saw it again. Far ahead, maybe half a mile, two beams of light appeared. They were bright, too bright for dusk. They bounced once, twice, as if coming down the dirt road. But then they stopped, dead still, hovering maybe 2 feet above the ground. My chest went cold. My buddy saw it too. I could tell from the way his hand gripped the dashboard. The lights flickered once, then shot upward into the dark, leaving a faint shimmer behind, like heat waves rising from asphalt. I swear to you, I heard the faint hum of an engine fading into the air. We turned around after that. Didn't say a word until we were miles away. People can say whatever they want, that it was fatigue, reflections, tricks of the desert heat, but there was no heat that night, no mirage, no reason for lights to move like that or lift straight off the sand. There's a kind of terror that sticks with you, not because it hurts you, but because it rewrote what you thought was possible. The flying truck, whatever it was, did that to me. Sometimes when I'm driving alone at night, I catch a glimpse of headlights behind me on an empty stretch of road, and for a second, I'm back there, on that dirt path by the Sea of Cortez, dust in my mouth, the roar of the ocean somewhere to my right. And I can't help but think, what if it wasn't chasing us? What if it was trying to show us something? I'll never know. All I know is that the desert keeps its secrets, and some nights, when the stars burn low and the horizon goes black, you can still see two beams of light rise over the sea, hang in the air like something remembering what it once was, and then disappear into the dark. If you ever drive that road to Gonzaga at night, keep your eyes on the mirrors, and if you see those lights behind you, don't stop.
The ghost truck of Cabbage Pass. I've been a long-haul trucker for over 15 years, and I've seen my fair share of strange things out on America's endless highways. People think trucking is all about open roads and freedom, but that's only half the truth. The other half is silence. Endless, suffocating silence. When you're driving through the night and all you can hear is the hum of your tires and the occasional whisper on the CB radio, your mind starts to drift. You see shadows where there shouldn't be any. You hear voices on empty channels. And sometimes, just sometimes, you see something that changes you forever. That night in late fall of 2016 was one of those times. The night I met the ghost truck of Cabbage Pass. It was around 2 in the morning when my wife and I rolled out of a little truck stop somewhere in Utah. I can't remember the name, but I remember the big neon Thunderbird on the sign. It stood tall against the black sky, glowing like a warning. The place was near a reservation, I think. We'd grabbed a quick meal, stretched our legs, and I was feeling decent, enough to push another few hundred miles before parking for the night. Our route took us west along I-84, toward Oregon. I was hauling a full load of beer bound for Portland. Heavy load, cold weather, long mountain roads, the kind of combination that keeps a man awake, no matter how tired he is. The night was cold enough to make the air bite through my jacket when I stepped out to check my rig. My breath came out in pale clouds. A thin mist crawled across the asphalt, hugging the ground. When I got back in the truck, my wife was already curled up in the passenger seat, wrapped in her blanket. "You good to keep driving?" she murmured, half asleep. "Yeah," I said, "just a few more hours. We'll stop after the pass." She nodded, drifting off again as I put the truck in gear. The road stretched on like an endless black ribbon. The hum of the engine was steady, soothing in a way. I turned the CB radio off. It was late, and I didn't want to wake her. Besides, at that hour, there's not much but static and the occasional lonely trucker calling out into the void. After about an hour, the road began to twist and rise. Cabbage Pass. Any trucker who's been through Oregon knows it. Steep, narrow, unpredictable, and when it snows, deadly. The kind of road that demands respect. The flakes started falling as I hit the first incline. I slowed the rig to a crawl, eyes focused, hands gripping the wheel. Then I saw it, far ahead, a pair of red taillights moving sluggishly up the mountain. At first, I was relieved. Having another truck ahead of you on a snowy mountain road can help, someone to pace with, someone to follow. As I got closer, I saw the logo on the trailer. Prime Incorporated. Big letters. Purple and black cab. I remember thinking, figures. Probably another rookie crawling his way up the hill. The snow thickened, swirling in the beam of my headlights. I could barely make out the edges of the road, just the ghostly glow of my lights bouncing off white walls of falling snow. The prime rig kept moving, slow and steady. I stayed a few hundred feet behind him, matching his pace. But something wasn't right. Every time I tried to close the gap, just to get close enough to pass, my truck seemed to lose ground, as if I was chasing a mirage. I'd downshift, gain a little, and then he'd pull away again. No brake lights. No change in speed. Just gliding up that mountain like the road didn't even touch his tires. "Babe," I whispered, glancing at my wife. She was asleep, breathing slow and steady. "You seeing this?" Of course, she didn't answer. Another curve. I rounded it, expecting to see those taillights again. But they were gone. I blinked hard, scanning the road ahead. Nothing. The snow still fell thick, my wipers squeaking across the glass, but there was no sign of the prime truck. I thought maybe he'd crested the hill, or maybe pulled off into a turnout. But there weren't any nearby. Just a long drop into darkness on my right, and the mountain face to my left. Still, I pressed on. Half an hour later, I came down the Oregon side and rolled into the pilot truck stop at the base of the pass. My wife stirred as I parked. "Bathroom break," she mumbled, pulling her blanket tighter. "Yeah," I said, still staring out at the snow, "me too." Inside the pilot, the smell of burnt coffee and diesel filled the air. A few truckers sat scattered around the lounge, the usual late-night crowd. One guy, a Swift driver, was talking loud enough for the whole room to hear. "And this goddamn prime truck was right on my ass the whole way down," he said. "Nearly ran me off the road. High beams, no CB response, just right there in my mirror. That made me stop." Another driver, a grizzled old-timer with a gray beard and a hat that looked older than me, looked up from his coffee. "Prime truck, huh?" he said slowly. "Purple and black?" The Swift driver frowned. "Yeah. You seen it too?" The old man nodded once. "Ain't no one drivin' that truck no more." The room went quiet. Even the hum of the refrigerators in the corner seemed to fade. The old man took a sip of his coffee and set it down carefully. "About 10 years back," he began, "a prime driver lost control on the top curve. Black ice. Went right off the edge. Cab burst into flames halfway down the slope. They said he didn't make it out. Company sent a crew up to tow what they could, but most of it was scrap." He paused, letting the silence settle before continuing. "Ever since then, drivers see him up there. Same purple and black tractor. Same slow crawl up the pass. Always in the snow. And always gone by the time you reach the bottom." I forced a laugh. "Yeah, right. I just saw that truck 20 minutes ago. He was in front of me the whole way up." The old man's eyes locked on mine. "Did you pass him?" "No," I said. "Couldn't catch him." The old man's face went pale. "Well, you're lucky then." "Lucky?" I said, half smiling. "For not passing a slow driver?" He shook his head. "No, son. Lucky you didn't talk to him." The Swift driver leaned forward. "What's that supposed to mean?" The old man glanced toward the windows, where the snow kept falling, flakes drifting in the yellow light from the street lamps. "Few weeks back," he said quietly, "a driver saw that same prime truck. Called him up on the CB. Chatted a bit. Said the guy's voice sounded weird. Metallic, kind of hollow. Like he was talking from underwater. They joked about the weather, the ice, usual trucker banter." He paused. "The next morning, Highway patrol found the swift driver's rig upside down near the same curve where the prime truck went off 10 years ago. Black ice again. Only this time, there wasn't a single other set of tire tracks. No one said a word. I felt the hairs on my arms stand up. The room suddenly felt smaller, the air heavier. Finally, I muttered, maybe it's just some prankster running a paint job like that. The old man shook his head. Company retired that color scheme in 2006. Ain't another one on the road. When we got back to the truck, my wife was quiet. She'd caught enough of the story to know something wasn't right. "You think it's true?" she asked as I climbed into the driver's seat. "I think I'm done talking about it," I said, trying to sound calm. But inside, I couldn't shake the feeling. As I turned the key, the engine rumbled to life, but the night felt different now, like something was watching from beyond the trees. The road stretched out in front of us, winding up the mountain once again. The snow had slowed to a faint drizzle, and fog rolled in thick. I kept my CB off. Couldn't stand the thought of hearing that hollow voice. Halfway up the grade, my headlights flickered. Just once, but enough to make me grip the wheel tighter. Then, in the rearview mirror, two faint white lights appeared. Far back at first. Then closer. And closer. My stomach turned to ice. Purple and black rig. No doubt. The same prime truck. I pressed the accelerator, but my truck wouldn't go faster. The engine roared, but the speedometer didn't budge. The lights behind me grew brighter, almost blinding. I could feel the vibration of another engine through the frame of my cab. My wife stirred. "What's going on?" "Stay down," I said through clenched teeth. Then the CB crackled. Static. A voice came through, low, distorted, almost mechanical. "Breaker 19, you out here again, driver?" I froze. That voice didn't sound human. It sounded empty. The air in the cab went cold. My breath fogged the glass. The lights behind me pulsed brighter, like they were right on my bumper. I didn't answer. Didn't touch the radio. Didn't even breathe. Then the voice spoke again, slower this time. "Missed me on the last run, don't worry. You'll see me, at the top." The CB hissed, then went dead. For the next 20 minutes, I drove in silence. Every nerve in my body screamed to stop, but I couldn't. The road twisted upward, steep and slick, guardrails buried in snow. When I finally reached the top, I glanced in the mirror. No lights. No truck. Just the endless white behind me. I exhaled for the first time in what felt like forever. My wife was trembling. "He's gone," she whispered. "Yeah," I said. "He's gone." But just as I started to ease down the other side of the pass, something caught my eye. On the shoulder, half buried in snow, stood a rusted road marker. Bent. Burned. And nailed to it, half torn, half frozen, was a strip of purple and black paint, glinting faintly in the beam of my headlights. Then, from somewhere up ahead, in the fog, a single horn echoed through the night. Low. Long. And impossible to tell where it came from. I never took Cabbage Pass again. Even years later, I route around it, no matter how much time it adds to the trip. Every once in a while, I'll hear chatter on the CB about that prime truck. Some drivers swear they've seen it. Some claim they've talked to it. But none of those drivers stay on the air for long. I still keep that strip of paint in a box under my bunk. Proof, I tell myself, that I wasn't dreaming. But every now and then, when the road gets quiet and the snow starts to fall, I swear I can hear that same voice crackle through the static. "Breaker 19, you out here again, driver?" And that's when I kill the radio. Because some things out on the road aren't meant to answer back.